Hi, my name is Guy Lawrence, and thanks for tuning into my podcast today. If you're enjoying these conversations and you want to check out more of this transformational work, be sure to come back to guylawrence.com.au and join me as we go further down the rabbit hole. Enjoy the show. Marc, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, great to be with you, Guy.
Marc, since last week, after meeting you in person and then doing a little bit of digging and research on you, I wasn't sure where to start, mate, because you have a lot going on and you have a lot of qualifications and there are so many areas to cover today. If you were to encapsulate what you do and where you're at right now, how would you do that?
I have fun, and I'm trying to create a culture of wellness that will infect the world with good health. So I'm trying to make that a joyous process, and I'm trying to make it regenerative and infectious and a lot of fun. So that's trying to create a culture of wellness. And I have been studying and researching for a long time, 4 decades at university.
Unbelievable.
And now I feel like I'm just ready to go out into the world and start offering my gifts to the world. And I'm really aligned with global transformation and the global transformation that's required, not the one that's necessarily happening. So I really believe in trying to work really hard towards what I do want rather than fighting anything that I don't want. And what I want is worldwide wellness. And the way to achieve that isn't just through some, action or opposing anything. It's through creating a culture where we all respect each other, respect ourselves, respect the earth. And I have a vision that we can turn the whole world into a health retreat. So I'm trying to implement that vision through as many channels as I can. So I'm writing, academic articles. I'm doing active research. I'm writing textbooks. I'm writing children's books. I'm writing poetry. I'm speaking on podcasts. I'm writing copy for websites. I'm creating new brands and new products. But really, they're all in service of a positive global transformation and empowering people to do it themselves. So I'm really about simple, practical solutions that you can do right now in your home to change your life, and then you can spread that throughout your own community.
Amazing. Well, you certainly are a gift to the world, mate. And it's clearly you're on a mission. Seriously, it's incredible. And what I've noticed from our small interactions and even on your website, that joy is always at the top of wellness. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, please? Because it's so important.
It's so important. If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. So dancing is really important. Joy is a really important part. And since studying Western medicine and Chinese medicine and learning about the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, then the 5 rhythms of transformation, and I break everything down into 5s. And I've got all these little lots of 5s, and I know once you've got a system of 5s, it's complete. And I have a system of 5s that I use for making any decisions about my life. I call it the 5 Fs. So for me to do something right now, it has to be fun. And fun is like the driving force. It's the flowing element. It gives the momentum for everything else. Then it has to bring fortune, and not necessarily to make me rich, but it has to bring in revenue or some sort of agency that makes me more powerful in the world, makes me more fortunate in the world. And that's staccato element. You can measure that in terms of accounting, and it's dollars and cents. And then the chaos element, which might be the air element or metal element in Chinese medicine, is fame. It's about what people say about you, or leaving a good reputation and a legacy of good feeling in the world. And then the lyrical element, the fire element, is fluency. It's about me being more fluent with my own life and learning and developing myself to be more free-flowing in my own personal pathway. And then finally, it's about friendships and family. So, if it's going to bring me fun, fortune, fame, fluency, and friendships, I do it. If any one of those are missing, I don't. But it's but fun is certainly the driving momentum behind everything I do. And that's I don't feel I don't work. I retired from my formal affiliate professorship 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, and I don't work anymore. I do passion projects, and it just so happens my passion is global transformation. And because all those things I do are fun, I don't feel like I'm working.
I love it. I always think about that. And if we had more of a clear, it's almost like if it's a hell yes with these 5 Fs, I'm in. And if it doesn't mean it, it's a no. And life becomes quite simple, I think.
That's it. And I really think thinking is overrated. And this is coming from an academic. My whole career is about thinking. I've spent 38 years at university. But I think once you've sorted things out, thinking is only ever in the past and the future. It's never in the present. And life only happens in the present. So thinking is good to direct a strategy, work out the 5 Fs, work out you're on the right path. But once you know your path, you can just be in the path and you don't have to think about it. And I'm amazed at the synchronicities that happen, especially when I'm up here in Northern Rivers. I turn up and whoever I need to meet, it just appears in my path. And I look around and, whatever I need is available. I don't have to plan it. I don't have to strategize it. It just happens naturally in the flow. And I take that as an affirmation that I'm in the flow and I feel really supported by life.
Wow. Do you think you had to lead yourself to this point, live a certain life for so long before you could drop into the flow? Because I think a lot of us fantasize about it, love the idea of it.
It's been a long path, and it's actually been I've had to educate and train myself on this. It was about 25 years ago, maybe a bit more. I came up with this concept of pronoia. And that's the opposite of paranoia. It's a belief that the whole universe is plotting to make you happy and that there's nothing you can do about it. And, and it's actually a book been written on it since there. But then, when I came up with this idea was, I realized that both pronoia and paranoia are delusional. Because the universe isn't out to hurt you and the universe isn't out to help you. The universe just is. But then if you're going to think and be deluded, you can consciously choose your delusion. And if you choose to think that the whole world is plotting to make you happy, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun to think that events are out there to help you rather than to hurt you. And even events that seemingly are, disastrous or negative can often have this incredible gift if you're open to that gift and if you're in action. And I wrote a children's book about this, and it's actually a very famous story out of China. It's often told in yoga communities, and there's a couple of TED Talks on about it. It's about the man who lost his horse. And in the story, there's a man with a horse, and the villagers say, "That's good, you've got a horse." He says, "I don't know if it's good or bad. I just know I've got a horse." Then the horse runs away, and they say, "That's bad." And he says, "I don't know if it's good or bad." And then the horse comes back with some stallions, and they say, "That's good." He says, "I don't know if it's good." And then his son rides the horse and breaks his leg, and they say, "Oh, that's bad." He says, "I don't know." And then his son gets saved from being taken away by the soldiers to go fight war because he's got a broken leg. And they say, "Oh, that's good." And he says, "I don't know." And that story really made an impact on me when I first read it 30 years ago. And then when my children were growing up, I transformed that story to have 2 lots of villagers to realize in any situation, you could say it's good. If you're a kind village, you've got a horse, oh, that's good, you're rich. But if you're a selfish village, you could say it's bad, you've got a horse because you're richer than me. And then the man can say, "I don't know if it's good or bad." And then the boy can be open into discovery in action, and he'll ride the horse. And he realizes he loves the horse more than anything else in the world. And he doesn't have time to study with his father or play with the other village boys and girls. And he gives thanks for the horse. And then when the horse runs away, so the boy's lost the thing he loves more than anything else in the world. And the kind villagers say it's bad, and the selfish villagers say that's good because you're just as poor as us. And the man says, "I don't know." And the boy says, "I'll play with the other boys now." And he realizes, he's got friends. And he loves playing with his friends, and he realizes he loves playing with his friends more than anything else in the world. So he actually gives thanks that he lost his horse. And then when the horse comes back, and he loves the power of riding the stallions, and he breaks his leg, and rather than poor me, he says, "I'm going to go study with my father now." And he sits with his leg up and studies with his father and realizes he loves learning. So he gives thanks that he broke his leg. And I think any situation can be like that. There's always a gift and an interpretation of any situation that it makes it the best possible thing, and you can be grateful for it. But you have to find it. You have to create that. And I'm not saying bad things don't happen and get upset about it, but I think that the suffering is a choice. And in any situation, you can create a a narrative that it's terrible and you're suffering and oh, poor me. But for every negative thought you have, there's an equally valid and equally powerful positive interpretation. And it's just for you to invent. In fact, there's an infinite number of equally valid and equally powerful positive interpretations, because thought is not limited. And if you can find that positive interpretation and you hold both of them in your mind and you can feel balanced, then you can be at peace with whatever happens. So I've been cultivating that for a long time. So even when seemingly negative things happen, I say, okay, where's the positive interpretation? What action can I do that makes this the best possible thing? And, you can manifest it. So it's a personal practice of, just not catastrophizing and realizing, global lockdowns and, shutting all this stuff that's going on right now, it seems pretty bad. What's the interpretation that makes this the best possible thing? And there's lots of them. So yeah, so I have been cultivating that for a long, long time, but it's actually quite liberating when you realize that you have the power of over your own suffering or over your own joy. And that's where thinking can be useful, because you can actually create a scenario that actually brings joy from whatever event.
Amazing. Yeah. And you're living proof of it, which is brilliant. It truly is. I was fascinated as well, Marc, because I read on your website, right, that you have more than 100 peer-reviewed scientific papers on wellness and natural medicine, which blows my mind, right? That blows my mind.
Well, believe it or not, that's, for an academic career, that's okay. But there are professors and other people who have 200-300, that's their career. So, I've had a long academic career. So 100 peer-reviewed papers is, I think the thing that's unique about my papers is they're very diverse.
That's the question I wanted to ask you, because you speak about bridging scientific research and then traditional wisdom. And I'm fascinated to see the interest in how the blend come together. Was it from your own personal journey or experiences, or was it just out of curiosity?
No, very much. Well, very much my own curiosity has led me. It led me to do Chinese medicine, or take years off my medical degree to study Chinese medicine, then stop being a doctor for a while and study electrical computer systems engineering to understand interaction of how information flows through the body and the effect of electromagnetic fields. And the research I've done, funnily enough, it's always been in areas that have no money behind them. So I've researched all the natural therapies, I think yoga and meditation, organic food, hot springs, saunas, health retreats, herbal medicine, nutrition, herbal teas, lots of yoga research from different aspects of yoga and breathing practices. So these are all the things that you can sort of do at home without. It's not a product, and there's not people lining up to fund these studies. And I've been quite successful. I've done the biggest research on acupuncture. I coordinated a government-funded study, the largest ever government-funded study on acupuncture in emergency departments. But that was because I was really curious about how Eastern medicine works with Western medicine. How does this acupuncture system work, and can it, is it as effective? And trying to demonstrate that. So I've been very much curiosity-led, but I think all the research I've done, I've been sort of building a portfolio to educate myself more than anything, because I wanted to learn about all those things myself. And one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it. So I ended up writing this massive herbs and supplements textbook because I wanted to study and learn about nutrition and herbs and supplements. And I was invited by my first ever PhD student, Leslie Braun. She was a naturopath and a pharmacist, and she wanted to write a textbook on herbal medicine. And I was sort of the integrative doctor, just as I got my professorship in about 2002. And she invited me to write this textbook. And I said, I'll write this textbook if you do a PhD. I'll supervise your PhD. So, I supervised her doing a PhD. She helped me write the textbook with her. And of course, 4 years later, she'd finished her PhD, and I wanted a second edition of the textbook. And the first edition was 400 pages. The second edition was 800. The third edition came out, it was 1,200 pages. And now we've just done the fourth edition at 1,600 pages of herbs and natural supplements. But that's been an amazing education for me. And it's also given me, it was fun to do, and it brought some money, and it created fame. I've got a good reputation now, and it made me fluent, and it's brought a whole lot of friendships and family into created a community for me. So it's been a really great thing. You don't make any money writing textbooks, don't get me wrong. It's not lucrative, but in terms of the knowledge and the networks and the experience it's given me, it's been wonderful. And I'm now using all that knowledge from all these research programs I've done to now take that into industry and take it to entrepreneurship and take it to other businesses.
Amazing. Yeah, you triggered a thought that's going left field for a minute, but I got to ask you anyway to try and tap into that brain of yours. Because,
Sure.
I've had some incredible scientists on my show as well, and different physicists and quantum physicists. I mean, I've had Amit Goswami on there, I've had a NASA physicist on, Tom Campbell, Bruce Lipton's been on. There's different interesting people that fascinate me. And you spoke about the flow of information through the body.
Yep.
And I know you've touched on it with quantum physics, even going into the realm. What's your thought on the flow of information, who we are at our essence, in terms of from a spiritual perspective to a physical perspective, and everything that you've researched? What conclusions have you come to?
Okay, well, that we are a divine manifestation of water.
Okay.
That defies entropy. So we have the second law of thermodynamics says, or actually the first law says, matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, just transformed from one to the other. And essentially that says the universe is one.
And entropy being a breaking down?
Or entropy is disorder. So if you have an isolated system, you have disorder. And there's a big question, is the whole universe itself an isolated system or not? But in terms of us, to be alive, you have to be an open system. You have to eat and excrete. You have to breathe in and inspire and expire. So we're an open system, and we defy entropy because we build up order. We evolve and grow and learn, and that is actually a property of water that we're just beginning to understand. And I'm a big fan of the science around water, because water itself can take low-grade background infrared radiation and use that to become ordered. And we are structured water. 99% of our molecules in our body are water molecules. I think Sven Gorgi said, life is water dancing to the tune of solids. And
right.
And when you think about just the language of water, I mean, to find water, you divine it. Divining is the process of water. Water is literally a spirit. We actually, there is literally a well in our being. We produce our own pure biological water through respiration. For every glucose molecule you metabolize, you create 2 molecules of water. So that's the basic equation of respiration. You get glucose and oxygen, and you burn that, and you get water and carbon dioxide and energy. So we make our own water, about 300 to 400 mils every day of our own biological water. But we are the process of water becoming conscious, and it's the infrastructure of our consciousness. And water is the great connector. So if you think about entropy is about isolated systems, water is the thing that connects all of us. It connects within our body. It channels energy and information, but it connects all living things on Earth. Water is the common element across all living things. And studying wellness for all these years, there's a sort of a truism that the currency of wellness is connection. The more you can be connected to yourself, to others, and to nature, the more you will be well. And even the word well, what is a well? It's a source of water. So to be well is to have this pure source of water, expressing itself and then connecting with all the other water that's out there. So, that in terms of a interpretation of sort of physical principles, the information that flows through our body needs to be an open system. And that's essentially a very crude summary of Chinese medicine, where you have the flow of qi through the body. And if the flow of qi is blocked, you have disorder, you have disease. And treatments like acupuncture, a lot of body work, trying to remove those blockages to have the free flow of qi. And once the qi is free flowing, well, then you have health. And when I was studying medicine, and I went and did a PhD in Chinese medicine, I came across all these terms like qi and yin and yang and the Tao, and realized that there's a whole system of Chinese medicine that makes a lot of sense. I mean, nearly a third of the world was using Chinese medicine, and it has a long history, and it's effective. But it was in Chinese. These concepts aren't necessarily translated into Western scientific terms. So I actually devoted time and did a PhD trying to be a bridge between these two systems. And it was the language of information and information theory that was actually able to be that bridge. So you can see as chi is a type of information. And the information flows through our bodies, not just through our nerves, but through the physical structure, the tensile forces in our body, and the fascia, and the lymphatics, and the hormones, and the water that's flowing through us, both in our blood and our lymph and spinal fluid and synovial fluid, etc. So it's incredible. We're an incredible information network, communication network.
Wow.
And that's why I ended up doing a PhD in electrical computer systems engineering, is because the people who study communication networks are computer systems engineers, not doctors. And it's sort of bizarre that in medicine, we don't really use the concept of entropy in medicine, whereas entropy really defines disease and disorder. And it defines how that happens and how you can overcome it. But it's, it's one of the first principles, but we sort of neglect that and then just, sort of treat the symptoms and very rarely go down to, where is the energy being blocked? And we sort of know that, if you block a coronary artery, or you block an intestine, or you block a blood vessel, you have disease, or, that's the source of disease, or you block an enzyme pathway, you have, metabolic diseases, or if you block emotional expression, if your ability to express yourself is inhibited, you become disordered, your expression can become disordered. If your thought processes become contained, you become fanatical, and your thought processes become disordered. So that the language of disorder and blockages actually translates across multiple levels, the macrocosm and the microcosm, and across all these different disciplines. And I think we could do get a lot more understanding across disciplines if we use some of these first principles to actually bridge these disciplines. And that's what I've attempted to do throughout my career.
Yeah, wow. So how do we bring then more order into the body? Like, what have you learned? How do you just distill it down into everyday life for wellness, health, vitality?
Yeah, great question. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and funnily enough, because I've studied Chinese medicine and Western medicine, and I've been trying to distill this knowledge down to make it accessible. And I've written lots of scientific papers and textbooks, but lately I've been writing it down, and it's been coming out as poetry. So when you ask me about wellness, I've written this poem. It's called The Recipe for Wellness. And it's super simple. So the recipe for wellness is: bathe in beautiful water, prepare delicious food, make the most of every breath, dance through every mood, tend the soil beneath your feet, embrace sunshine from above, share your gifts with all the world, and fill your life with love.
Beautiful.
So it's simple. To be well is simple. It's about connection. So you connect with water, with your breath, with food, with other people, and with your own gifts, and expressing yourself. So being opening up yourself to express yourself to the world is part of being well. And I'm really challenged at the moment where a lot of government policies are about shutting down. They're about isolation and quarantining and masking and disconnecting, social disconnection. And that's the antithesis of wellness.
I was going to say, everything that you spoke of in your poem, I'm not hearing via the government or the media right now.
Yeah, it's not in the government's interest to have happy, healthy people, unfortunately. And so we're living in really troubling times. I've spent my whole career walking that tightrope between alternative and conventional medicine. And there is a lot of opposition to alternative medicine. There's a whole industry that wants to suppress our innate ability to be healthy because they want to sell us health in a pill. And there are forces there that don't want us to actually embrace our own inner well-being. But someone once said to me that a kite flies highest when it has a strong wind against it. So it's these forces against us that actually can help lift us higher. And that's sort of that interpretation, So someone's pushing against you. Well, the paranoid version was, oh, poor me, they're fighting me, they're more powerful than me, I have to collapse and die. Or the pronoia version would be, oh wow, this is for my benefit. They're fighting me and they're opposing me to lift me higher and make me stronger and get my allies together and make me more conscious and help other people wake up around me. So you can interpret it either way, and it's when you have the choice to interpret a situation like this, it actually is really empowering.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Perfect answer. Absolutely. I'm fascinated. This is for my own selfish interest now, this next question, but hey, it's a podcast and I run it.
Your podcast.
So everyone listening, I apologize, but hopefully it'll be interesting to you all. You've done a lot of work and research on hot and cold therapy, especially when alternating. Can you speak to a little bit about that and in terms of application and what you find are good results and how it actually we benefit from it as well?
Sure. Well, if you think about, water, I mean, the only reason why we're alive on Earth is the Earth is in the Goldilocks zone, in between, where it's not too hot and not too cold, and water can exist in the liquid state. And all life exists in a very narrow temperature window. So all life has to cope with the extremes of temperature, both hot and cold. And in fact, there's another story, but the water on Earth actually was the mixture of the hottest water and the coldest water in the solar system. And then life appeared on Earth where the hottest water on Earth met the coldest water on Earth, which is at the very bottom of the oceans, where the densest, coldest water sinks to the bottom of the oceans, and it meets hot water coming out of hydrothermal vents. It's been heated up inside the Earth and it's laden with ore. And you have this incredible mixture of pressure and temperature and solutes, and that's where life originated, at this interface of hot and cold. And for ourselves, when you are exposed to extremes of hot and cold, you can very easily put yourself in a life and death situation, because either hot and cold are life-threatening. But you can do it in a very controlled way, and you can do it to explore the edge of your comfort zone. And I've come up with a whole methodology and theory around what I call extreme wellness. And that involves you expanding your dynamic range and just visiting the edge of your comfort zone. So it's not pushing it, it's not trying to force it to expand. But if you just visit the edge of your comfort zone, and you can do it not just in terms of heat, you can do it in terms of water and glucose and oxygen and temperature and carbon dioxide. And have a system where you filter and flush your bladder and feast and fast your bowel and pant and hold your breath and do hot and cold with your body and do everything in flow, and then don't do anything at all with your brain. But when we're talking about temperature, temperature has it's been one of the most basic defense for immunity. So actually at the start of the pandemic, I was writing about this, saying how you can actually improve your immunity by just having a hot bath or a sauna or a hot shower and raising your body temperature. And when you raise your body temperature, your immune system becomes more active. Your immune cells become more fluid, the antigens get presented better, there's a heat shock proteins get released, there's all these biochemical and mitochondrial responses and immune and physiological responses that actually boost your immunity. And if you look at evolutionary history, for the last 600 million years, every fish, insect, bird, reptile, and mammal has raised their body temperature when they have a viral infection. That's the basic response. And it's almost like, as humans, we live in this temperature window between viruses and mold. When it's cold and dry, we're susceptible to viruses. When it's hot and humid and moist, we're susceptible to mold. And we live in this sort of temperature window in between those two. And that's why we get viruses, in the flu season, when it's cold and dry, and the air is cold and dry, and our nose chills out, and viruses can enter. But ever since humans went to the first hot spring and developed sweat lodges and saunas and steam rooms, and they've outsourced the ability to raise their body temperature to the environment. I mean, you do it when you have a fever. Mammals and humans have when we have a fever, that raises our body temperature, but it's exhausting. I mean, to use your own metabolic energy to raise your temperature, it's really tiring. But if you can outsource that to your hot water system or the sauna heater or a heater, you can actually do it and be quite relaxed. Mind you, when you do that, and I've done a lot of research. One of my PhD students is just finishing her 5-year research on saunaing, and what we found was that across the board, when people use saunas, especially, they sleep better. It makes you tired, and you actually sleep better. And when you sleep better, when you get the basic things right, everything else becomes right by itself.
Yeah.
So heat is such a primeval force, but we can use it to manipulate our body and our emotions and our mind. So when you're in a very hot environment, in a hot bath or a sauna, you vasodilate, you open up, there's 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels, all lined by smooth muscle that are normally not under your voluntary control. But when you're in a hot bath or a sauna, those blood vessels will open up, and you'll circulate blood through your periphery, which normally it would circulate when you're exercising. But when you're exercising, you're making metabolic waste products. Whereas in your hot bath and the sauna, you're getting the blood flowing through your muscles and your skin without making metabolic waste products. So it's picking up those metabolic waste products and it's opening your blood vessels. And then when you alternate that with the cold, then your blood vessels shut down. It's like a bicep curl for your vascular system. Every time you do that, your vascular system is tightening up. And what that does, it brings that blood, that warm blood, into your internal organs, into your core, and it pushes it through your liver and your kidneys, which then filters out all those metabolic waste products. And provided you're not dehydrated and you're drinking good water, and it allows you to flush out a lot of these toxic metabolites, and you actually detoxify through that process of going from hot to cold. But it's also, there's a lot of other things that go on. So when you're in the heat, it's very relaxing. It's often very social, sauning or bathing if you're in a hot tub with other people. And then when you go in the cold, especially if you're going to extreme cold, like an ice bath, it's very confronting. And it actually reproduces the body chemistry and the breathing pattern of trauma or anxiety. Because if you go into an ice bath, you start to hyperventilate, and it's like you're having a panic attack. And some people who may have had PTSD or some past trauma, if they go into an ice bath, they can actually reproduce and reignite that past trauma, and it can be quite mildly traumatic for them, and you've got to be a bit careful. But what it does do, it allows them to relive that past trauma in a very controlled way. So, because they can get out anytime they want, and if there's a source of heat, they can just warm up. So they're not in a life-threatening situation. But if they're hyperventilating, and it gives them an opportunity to then consciously control their breath. And when you consciously control your breath, it allows you to become relaxed in an otherwise uncomfortable situation. And then that gives you power over that uncomfortable situation. So that's a really valuable technique for people to learn. And I've got another poem I can share, which I came up with when I was coaching people through ice bathing. And I was trying to work out all the things that would turn on the parasympathetic response. Because when you go into an ice bath, you turn on the sympathetic nervous system response, which is fight and flight. So fight and flight means all your attention's outwards. It's like you're trying to fight in a battle or run for your life from a tiger or something. So all your muscles get pumped up, your fists are clenched, your eyes are open, you're breathing hard, you've got pursed lips. So the things you do when you're relaxing, parasympathetic response, are the things you do when you're safe in your cave. Things like eating, using fine finger movements, writing, drawing, sewing, flirting, sleeping. So they're the things you do with the parasympathetic nervous system response. And there are 10 physical actions you can do to stimulate or simulate those responses. And I call them the 10 hacks to relax. And they are: touch all your fingers, wiggle your toes, soften your stomach, breathe through your nose, sigh, smile, swallow, sing, flutter your eyelids, and focus within. So those activities stimulate parasympathetic response. If you do that in an ice bath, it'll tell you that you're calm and relaxed. You'll convince your body you're calm and relaxed. But it actually works anytime you're scared, upset, in pain, or anxious. If you do those activities, it'll calm your body down. And I really like activities that get to your mind through your body. Because it's hard. It's often hard. I'm panicking. I know I'm panicking, but how do I think my way out of a panic? That's hard. But if okay, I can just do these physical activities, wiggle my toes and touch my fingers. And a lot of those activities, you'll notice, are controlling the breath, softening your stomach, breathing through the nose, sighing, singing, smiling. They're all really controlling the breath. So the breath is really the portal to link the mind and the body. And if you can take control of your breath, you've won the battle over anxiety.
Yeah, it's massive. Do you know, or have you done any study on cold exposure and the immune system. So if you were to just ice bath for 2 minutes and come out and push the sympathetic parasympathetic system afterwards as well, would you, does that affect the immune system as well, like the hot therapy?
Well, I think they're linked, and in the literature, they're not linked very well. And I think this is a big critique of the scientific literature at the moment.
Right.
So for example, there's a lot of sauna research that comes out of Finland, and they describe how when you have they've studied, big cohorts of men over, over multiple 20-year periods, and found that regular sauna bathing reduces all-cause mortality, less chance of dying overall, reduces heart attack and stroke and Alzheimer's disease and respiratory infections and pneumonia, and all these things that are helped. And they talk about this in the literature. And if you think about sauna, it's the only Finnish word in the English language that's become part of the English language. And saunas are now part of every 5-star hotel, and every gym has a sauna, but very few of them have an equivalent cold experience. And in the literature, they talk about saunaing, and especially in Finland, it's taken for granted in Finland that when you have a sauna, you go outside and you have a cold exposure because it's so cold outside. But they actually don't talk about that in the literature. I mean, it's taken for granted so much they don't even mention it. So when we often think about saunaing, we don't take the whole cultural practice, as it's done in Scandinavia, where you go outside and jump in the lake or roll in the snow and then go in and out and have a few rounds. We just think about the heat. But I think the hot and the cold go really well together. And it's really good to bring them together. But then it's also just as important to have a period of re-equilibration and integration where you're just resting and then going to homeostasis. So you go to the hot, you go to the cold, and then you let your body find the balance. And at that balance point and that middle point, there's that bliss of pure homeostasis, where you're not too hot and you're not too cold, you're just right. Just like the whole planet, it's not too hot, not too cold, just right for water. Well, you can make that temperature just right for you. And so I think whenever you're doing hot and cold, it's really important to have at least equal period just resting.
Yeah, it's a good metaphor to reap the rewards of the hard work you've just done from sitting in the sauna.
Yeah, and although it shouldn't be hard work, I talk about trying to go to the point of forced mindfulness, or being comfortably uncomfortable. So you're not uncomfortably uncomfortable, you're comfortably uncomfortable. And there's a point where you'll be in the sauna and you might be chatting or reading a book, but there's a point when you get really hot and you start to think, oh, I have to get out of here. It's like your body starts talking to your mind and getting your mind's attention, saying, hey, we're actually getting hot. It's a life-threatening situation here. And I talk about the point where your mitochondria and your mind are all on the same page. And that's the point of forced mindfulness. So you're coming to mindfulness through your body. And all you have to do then is just a few breaths and just breathe and be there. And then you can change. And it's similar to doing a yoga stretch. There'll be a point where you're stretching in yoga, you'll get to the edge of your stretch. There's a point where if you just breathe and be there, you're going to be okay and you can be relaxed. But if you push yourself further, you're going to hurt yourself. And then you pull a muscle. So you don't want to pull a metabolic muscle in the sauna by forcing yourself to go too long. You want to just visit the edge of your comfort zone, acknowledge it, breathe, and then go and change and then cool down and relax and maybe do a couple of rounds. But what naturally happens when you visit the edge of your comfort zone, it naturally expands. So, the next day, then the day after, you can actually take it further without actually any sort of forcing. And that's especially true with the cold. Like it's true with the hot as well. You build up tolerance, but with the cold, you build it up really quickly. And if you think about our European ancestors, when winter was coming on, every day would be a little bit colder than the next, and their bodies would adapt. So, you get adjusted to the cold very quickly. And I've been encouraging people to take cold showers, and very often people, oh no, I can't, I'm not a cold water person, I can't do cold showers. And I've developed a little song and dance routine that can help them. And I call that the cold water hokey pokey. And it makes it really easy because basically you start with a really hot shower. So if you don't like the cold, just get really hot. And then at the end of your hot shower, turn the heat up a bit. So you're prickly hot and you're really flushed and you're vasodilated and all your blood vessels are open. And then you stand back, and the hardest part of the whole thing is mental. It's the decision to do it. But then you just turn the hot water off and the cold water on, but you just wet your left foot. And, that's okay. You're really hot, you wet your left foot. Oh, that's okay. You're not panicking with that. And then you wet your leg. and then you can do your right foot and your leg. Then you can do your left hand and your arm and your other hand and your arm. And what that's done is it vasoconstricts your periphery, the blood vessels in your arms and legs, and it pushes all that warm blood into your core. So you're still feeling warm. And then the most important part is to keep breathing calmly and smile to yourself, because that's what it's all about. And then you can put your left side in. But before you put your left side in, especially when the water hits the blood vessels around your neck, which are close to the surface, normally when the cold water hits there, you'd take you'd gasp. But before you do that, you take a big breath. And as you're putting your left side in, you sigh. So as the cold water's hitting your neck. And it changes the experience completely. Because as you're sighing out, you're relaxed. And then you just, you notice the sensation of cold, but there's no emotional baggage with that. And you put your left side in, then your right side in, your front side in, you turn yourself around. And you can keep breathing calmly and smile to yourself, because that's what it's all about. And then you can put your whole head in. And again, normally when you put your head in, I mean, your head has a lot of blood vessels near the surface. That would cause you to gasp, but you just sigh as you do that. You move your head around and you stand still, get a drenching. It's like turn yourself around, continue breathing calmly and smile to yourself, because that's what it's all about. And then you can direct the cold water on your kidneys, your groin and your armpits, all the places where the blood vessels are close to the surface. And you'll find that just by doing that, you'll be comfortable in really cold water. And it may take a few days to build up to that. If the water's really cold, you're starting this in winter, and the shower temperatures are 8, 10 degrees, it might take a few days to build up to that. But if you build it up slowly, there's no stress about it. There's no forcing. And you'll find you can naturally stand under very cold water and realize I'm okay. And that whole song and dance takes about a minute or less. You do it in the comfort of your own shower. It requires no extra money. You're saving a bit of hot water, no really extra time. And you can start your day singing and dancing. And when you get out after the cold shower, you feel really invigorated. You actually feel alive. And you've also practiced dissolving your procrastination muscle. So you're overcoming procrastination. So if you can do that in the morning, any other thing you have to do during the day, when there's that difficult conversation you have to have, or the job you really didn't want to do, you've practiced saying, okay, I'm just going to do it and I'm going to be okay. So it actually translates, gives you power over the rest of your life, just this simple act of having a cold shower. So yeah, playing with temperature, it's a really powerful way to exercise your ability, your willpower, exercise your vascular system, exercise your mitochondria and your metabolism, and do it very, very simply and cheaply, and to boost your immune system. And it's really effective as an immune system enhancer, and just as I say, fever is. So you can have the power over your immune system just in a hot water.
It's
bath.
Totally, it's incredible. I mean, I'm the converted you. Because I know you know Wim, but I spent a week with Wim Hof back in 2016, I think, something like that. And ever since, I've been kind of keeping up with a hot and cold shower daily and finishing on a cold for us. Not that it gets that cold in Byron Bay, but it's not too bad. But it's a great habit, honestly. Like it's night and day from how I'd feel before.
The other thing people will notice, your skin will feel better and your hair feels better. And because cold water closes up your pores and closes up the cuticles on your hair, so your hair will actually feel better and more manageable. It does make a difference though, having good water. Especially if you're bathing in hot water that's chlorinated, that can be problematic, because chlorine releases disinfection byproducts that are volatile, and you breathe them in and they absorb through your skin. So so bathing.
I heard you mention as well with the bathing in the hot water to leave the bath sit for half hour, but like make it hotter than you would normally do to get in. And
so that's a little hack. If you don't want to, if you have only access to town water that's chlorinated, and you don't want to bathe in chlorine water, and I do this often when I'm traveling in hotels. Often, it's just chlorinated water in the bath. I love having baths. So what you do is you turn the hot bath on and make it really hot, and make sure there's a fan on, and you just wait for half an hour. And in that half an hour, a lot of the chlorine and the disinfection byproducts will become volatile. They'll outgas, the fan will suck them away. And after half an hour or so, the water will cool down to a temperature you can handle, and you can have a relatively chlorine-free bath. So that's a good little hack.
Yeah, it certainly helps.
If
Do you
you
add
can't
anything?
afford-
Do you add anything yourself to the bath then to help it? Help it
Oh,
along?
normally I'd put in Epsom salts, and I'll put in essential oils, and maybe a friend,
And you're good to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, bathing is such a basic, thing for hygiene and health, but it's also very sensual. I mean, it gets you in touch with your body and temperature, and yeah, I think it's one of the most important things we can do. And the recipe for wellness starts with bathe in beautiful water, and it's not just bathing; it's drinking the beautiful water. And for me, beautiful water is water that's been filtered, structured, balanced in terms of pH and minerals,
Yeah.
blessed like with conscious intention, and that's free. That's not a commodity. It's actually freely available. And yeah, I think that we could definitely change the world if we
Improves
sort
our
of focused
water.
on providing water to people. But roughly about a third of the world don't have access to that at the moment, and that's, I think, a travesty. So I'm really dedicated to try and bring consciousness to water, bring consciousness to the power of temperature. And whenever you're dealing with temperatures extremes, you're always dealing with water, because the humidity is a big factor. Because water will transmit heat 25 times better than air. So you can tolerate a hot bath maybe to 42. I think the Japanese go to 47, but they're crazy. Steam room maybe at 47, 48 degrees is tolerable, but a dry sauna, which is still have some level of humidity, can 100 degrees, 110 degrees centigrade is still possible when it's dry. So so there's not one prescription of this is how long this temperature and this length of period. It depends on the humidity, depends on the temperature, and it depends on your personal tolerance. And that will change depending on your own mental state, your own anxiety, whether you've got stress in your life, whether you've been eating junk food or not. All these will change your tolerance to temperature. So it's what brings you to that point of forced mindfulness, of being comfortably uncomfortable, and that is a very personal experience. As a doctor, I can't prescribe a particular temperature and time for you.
Of course, yeah.
So you have to then have a relationship with your body, and you have to tune in to your own body, and that's also a really powerful process.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. Well, before we wrap up the podcast, can you touch on the projects that you've got going at the moment? Because I know you alluded to the water, but you were showing me, because you got quite a few things happening.
I do. As I say, you've got another hour, because I've spent another hour talking. So I've just launched 4 different companies, businesses that I call them adventures. So they're different ventures, but they're adventures. And one it's been going for 35 years. It's a children's book that I've just released. It's called Bing and Bang Begin. That's Love and Everything. It's the short. Yeah. It's the shorter version, for the compressed version. But it's a creation story that brings in all the concepts of Chinese medicine, of the Tao and Yin and Yang and the 5 elements, into a playful Dr. Seuss type rhyme that then talks, and then the longer book goes into concepts such as thermodynamics and evolution and mindfulness, and brings it into a very fun way of thinking about these concepts. So Pronoia Press is my publishing arm, and I've got 3 boys. The Beautiful Mare and the Boy Who Gave Thanks is the story I described about the man who lost his horse, and then Love and Everything and Bing and Bang Begin are the creation story.
And they're beautiful, mate. Oh, truly, like the illustrations, the writing, everything. We've been reading it to Ava.
A couple of
Stunning.
years. Here, Maddox spent 2 years illustrating these books, each of those books, and
Wow.
Yeah, they really are stunning. So I've got children's books that I'm writing. I've just launched a water company called Beautiful Water, and the website's just beautifulwater.co, and that has systems that are filtered, structured, balanced, blessed, and free in terms of the water. I've created a company that does extremely alive wellness tonics, and these are tonics made from kombucha vinegar. So it's literally a starter culture. So it's a kombucha vinegar that's fermented all the way through, so there's no sugar or alcohol left in them, but they're still alive. There's still bacteria and yeast there. And then we soak herbs, and we use 10 different herbs for each blend, and there's 5 blends based on the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. And in the blends, we use a combination of leaves, roots, flowers, fruits, and fungi. So they've all got the, the earthy element and the air element and the water element. And we blend them into these tonics that you can take straight just as a shot, like a 20 ml vinegar shot, like you would with apple cider vinegar, but they're highly potent, organic herbs that we use. And there's one we call the flu shot, which all the herbs in the flu shot have proven scientific efficacy against the flu virus. So I used all the experience I had writing that herbs and supplements book. I've actually put to use developing this company, Extremely Alive, and that's extremelyalive.com.au. So those tonics we've just done our production run and just had a launch with the tonics. The filters are out, the books are out, and then the Extreme Wellness Academy is an online education portal where I have a course on water, actually 2 courses on water. And I've partnered with this incredible woman, Isabel Friend, who has her own website, waterislife.love. And she's just a water geek. And together we've created these courses. One's called The Wonders of Water, which goes through all the pros and cons and the differences between spring water, tap water, reverse osmosis water, distilled water, alkaline water, etc. And then it goes through the processes of filtering, structuring, balancing, blessing, and then water advocacy and water freedom. And it explains how you can do all those things yourself, how to find a spring. And there's a great website, findaspring.com, where you can find your local spring. And there are ways you can filter and structure water yourself at home. And then I have beautiful water systems that do that as well. So yeah, online education. And then I'm trying to bring all these together in what I call the wellness circus, which is like a traveling wellness roadshow.
Of course you are.
Yeah, so we can have, saunas and ice baths and hot tubs and set them up in public places or at festivals, and then use that as an education center and have teas and kombuchas and tonics, and really give an experience to people of wellness and then tell them how to take it home. So I love giving away Tulsi cuttings. Tulsi is holy basil. I've written a lot, and I've had PhD students study Tulsi for 5 years. And but it's a very easy to grow plant. You can take a cutting, it'll grow roots, you can give it away. Then people can grow it themselves and use it for tea and pesto. The same with a kombucha SCOBY or our tonics. If I give them away, if you add sugar and tea to our tonics, you can keep growing your own kombucha from them. So these are what I call generative wellness practices. And the aim is to create this culture where people can go and do this and literally infect the world with good health. Because I believe wellness can be more contagious than illness, but we have to do that through our culture, and it has to be so appealing to you that you want to do it yourself, and then you want to share it with your friends.
Yeah,
and then that comes back to fun, because if you make it fun, then you want to share it with your friends.
Totally, Marc. Bloody hell, mate! It's a good job you're in flow. I can tell you, with all those projects happening, it's incredible. I got nothing but admiration for you.
Oh, thank you, Guy. Well, it doesn't feel like, people say, wow, how do you do so much? Well, I don't watch TV. I don't get involved with politics. I don't get involved with sport. I don't do mainstream media. I don't read the news. So I'm really protective of what goes into my consciousness.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this a long time, so I've been on the same path for a long time. So it doesn't feel like work for me. I really
Brilliant.
don't work
And you said something so important at the beginning, and I just want to, I can't remember how you phrased it, but the fact that you focus on what you can bring to the world, not push against what's wrong with the world, but you're over here actually.
I think that's important. Yeah, I
really
want
important.
I want to do the things that so I'll finish with another poem. This is The Antidote to Fear. Because fear is, one of the, in fact, I've got 2 more poems I can share just quickly.
Please.
So The Antidote to Fear is: foster love of poetry, express yourself through dance, fill your life with fun and joy, friendship and romance. Focus on the things you want, be the change you want to see. Spread goodwill to all you meet and live fearless and free. Again, it's very simple, but it's about, focusing on the things you want and spreading goodwill.
Yeah.
That's how you overcome fear. And the last poem is a poem I came up with at the start of the pandemic, when I was thinking about how you overcome fear and anxiety and boost your immune system at home and during lockdown. And I've been studying holistic health for, nearly 40 years. So I had a lot of different things I wanted to talk about, and I started putting them all together, and they came out as a poem. So this poem has 50 activities. And on my website, I've actually got a link from each activity to the scientific research behind it.
Oh, wow.
So each of these 50, so this poem's a mini literature review. And these are 50 activities you can do at home with very little money, equipment, or training that'll boost your immunity and reduce fear and anxiety. And I call this the whirl of wellness. So the whirl of wellness. Hold someone's hand, gaze into their eyes. Go barefoot in nature, bask in sunrise. Choose a dance partner and go find your groove. Do Tai Chi or yoga and mindfully move. Share a massage, receive healing touch. Focus on one thing and don't think too much. Make time for a hobby, play chess, fly a kite. Make use of your hands, draw, paint, sew or write. Help someone in need, donate to a cause. Play games, meditate, read stuff from bookstores. Turn off your screens and get a good sleep. Declutter, spark joy, and love what you keep. Dig around in a garden, pick up a guitar, slip into a bathtub, sauna, or spa. Care for a pet, take up a sport, go on vacation and make your home a resort. Lie in a hammock and relieve pent-up stress. Relax and do nothing, then do even less. Laugh out loud, share a joke, give someone a kiss, say a prayer, chant a mantra, and follow your bliss.
Wow.
So that's how I try and live my life, to try and fill those 50 things in every day if I can.
Amazing. And do you have a book of poems coming out by any chance?
I'd like to. I'd like to do a little performance, like a show, cabaret, doing poetry. Most of the poems are on my website, drmarc.co. My children's books, Bing and Bang Begin is poetry. I have another poem coming out, which I'm still working on, but I'm tweaking, which is actually the story of water. It tells this 4.5 billion year old story of how water turned into life. And it's like a biology textbook in poetry. But most of those poems I've shared today are on my website, drmarc.co, there's academic articles and there's books, but there's podcasts and there's videos, but there's poetry is one of the tags, and most of those poems can be found there.
And everything you mentioned as well, your projects, will they all be linked on your main website as well?
They are, I think, yeah.
They should be, yeah.
And there's quite a few that we haven't mentioned that are also there. So, the hot springs in New Zealand, and we do adventure bathing, and Bathe the World Foundation, and there's lots of other activities, but it would need a whole nother episode to talk about that.
So I'm sure you'll be back on at some stage, Marc. That was incredible. Look, for people listening to this, if they pause, there'll be Marc's link just below, whether you listen on audio, YouTube, or whatever, the link will be there. So please go and support Marc, check it out. And Marc, look, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today, sharing your wisdom.
Such a pleasure, yeah.
I wasn't sure where we were going to go with it, but that was amazing. And
it was fun for me. And I feel so blessed to be able to just come on your podcast, because I just come and chat, and you do all the work and you set it all up, and then you promote what I'm doing. And I just feel really grateful and really blessed to be in this position. So thank you.
You're welcome. Cheers, Marc. Appreciate it.
Okay. All the best.